Вие сте лешояри, вие не сте журналисти. Това ще ви се проклети да сте! Проклети да сте! Проклети да сте!
Despite a number of legislative barriers, hate speech towards various communities, mostly ethnic, religious and sexual minorities, occurs frequently in public statements and the media. Regardless of the existence of various items of relevant legislation, however, there is a disturbing proliferation of hate speech. There is also a misunderstanding or unfamiliarity on the part of Bulgarian law enforcement authorities regarding the concept of a hate crime. In August 2013, the Council for Electronic Media issued a statement urging the journalistic profession to distance themselves from all attempts to use hate speech.
Hate speech has no deep roots in Bulgarian society, and nor in relations between people. Rather, it appears sporadically associated with certain events, the most recent being the refugee wave from Syria, but mainly it's driven by politicians for their own particular goals. The language of hatred is a strong tool to getting out the vote. I very much want the specific term hate speech or the language of hatred to become part of our law. Currently, there are other provisions in the law that cover this kind of content. But hate speech is a broader process against which it is difficult now to the Council to respond because it does not have the instruments to do so. Our law was created when we were still pretty close to a totalitarian society. And so the main purpose of the law was to defend any opinion, no matter how radical. Now, 25 years after the fall of communism, there is a realization that there is another side to this, which is much more important or just as important, and that is to protect other human rights.
The total number of registered television channels in Bulgaria is 148, broadcast mainly through cable and satellite. Among these is a very specific group that can be described as television stations for nationalist political and party views. They are made up of two media in which the presenters mainly are politicians and the presence of journalistics is scarce. It twice has happened that a political party is formed around television channel. The channel in question is SCAT. According to GARP Audience Research Bulgaria, over the years, the channel has maintained a stable rating, ranking between 8 and 12 among the most watched channels in the country. This was not always so. At the outset, the channel was founded in the Black Sea city of Burgas in 1992, and for more than a decade it had limited local popularity. The glorious history of SCAT began in 2003, when in front of the camera appeared latter-day Bulgarian politician and leader of the Nationalist Party Ataka, Volen Sidorov. He appeared in the role of presenter of a program called Ataka, offering his audience scripted xenophobic monologues crafted to direct public opinion towards the problems with ethnic minorities in Bulgaria. Himself a journalist, Sidorov spared others in no profession, no insults. For him, they are whores, hyenas, lackeys, and vultures. Whether in this way Sidorov boosted SCAT TV, or whether it was the support of the owner Valery Simyonov for the nationalist cause that boosted Sidorov to popularity, is an issue on which the two sides have diametrically opposite opinions.
The Ataka show did not have that approach which developed after the third month on the air. It was supposed to comment on the sellout and compromised media in Bulgaria. That was our idea, so I took on Volen. At the time he was unemployed. I recruited him. I knew him since high school. Unfortunately, he could not pull it off. Scat Television and the political party of Scat, which competes with our party Ataka, conducted a dirty war against Ataka. Valery Simeonov and Scat have conducted for 4 years a war against me through dirty propaganda and lies. I have sued some of the Scat presenters over these lies. There are other court cases.
However, before the rift in 2005, Siderov's Ataka show took on its own life as political party. It was founded as a nationalist and patriotic party, a huge contributor to its successful performance already in the parliamentary elections in 2005, at the time winning close 300,000 votes or 21 seats in parliament, even when it was not registered, was Scat TV and its owner Valery Simeonov. The relationship between Simeonov and Sidorov grew close when the Scat owner was best man at the wedding of the newly minting politician. From the parliamentary election in 2009, relations between the two deteriorated. Scat TV, however, shed no popularity and drew public figures close to nationalist ideas. Because of this, the station showed no sharp decline in its audience after the 2009 breakup with Sidorov, and several of the presenters became and continue to be municipal councillors in Burgas. Among them is the owner himself, Valery Simeonov. In the current Bulgarian parliament, Ataka has 23 seats out of total 240, almost reaching the 4% threshold for seats in 2013 was the party formed around Scat TV, the National Front for the Salvation of Bulgaria. These results show that nationalism has become a long-term political trend in Bulgaria.
Recently, journalists asked me what I mean when I say it's time for a new revolution. This is what I mean, a hall full with people who want change and who, in the years since we were founded, realized that without patriotism and nationalism, nothing works. Our spiritual leader, the patron of the party, the famous Bulgarian writer Nikolai Haitov, said, "Nationalism, that is my natural aggregate statue." That was said more than 20 years ago. What is bad is something else, that an extremist party, which also started from our Scat TV and was our project, assured that nationalism became a dirty word.
The rift between Sidorov and Simeonov led logically to the furtherance of the Scat television model. Left without his main political tool, the airwaves, Ataka leader Volen Sidorov wanted a television station founded in the name of his party. On September 8, 2011, the Council for Electronic Media registered a TV channel named Alpha. The Bulgarian Radio and Television Act has no explicit text prohibiting political parties from engaging in broadcasting activities. In 2011, the Council for Electronic Media gave its ruling 2 months after the submission of an application by the Ataka political party for the registration of Alpha TV. The president of the council, Georgi Luzanov, found that there were no grounds to refuse registration, but insisted that the decision by SEM specified that it was essential to make clear the connection between the television station and the political party.
Alpha TV was registered because the law is sufficiently liberal and did not give us the possibility of refusing that registration. Bulgarian law makes it possible for political parties to establish media outlets, moreover, not only Bulgarian law, even though this is a very rare practice. I think it would not be bad, after all the law should regulate current social relations, that there should be a new regulation. And it would not be bad if that somehow became a common European policy on this intersection between the media and politicians and politics, because it is a source of a latent and frequently arising conflict of interest between these two public roles.
Party leader Volen Sidorov returned to the screen with a new show, Studio Ataka.
Greetings, dear Bulgarians. You are watching Ataka TV, the television of the true, the television of the party Ataka. Every Sunday I stand before you to tell you what happened during the week, because you cannot hear it from other television stations in the way that I explain it.
Alpha TV failed to gain large-scale viewing audience, at least according to surveys. Neither it nor Skat are among the leaders in shaping public opinion in Bulgaria. Their programs, however, have always been subject to monitoring by the Council for Electronic Media. In January 2014, SEM, for the first time, conducted a month of parallel monitoring of the two television stations, Alpha and Skat. The aim was to establish the prevalence of hate speech. The monitoring found the presence of xenophobia, homophobia, intolerance towards the ethnic communities of Roma and Turks in Bulgaria, as well as negativism towards all other political parties. All of this occurred to a larger extent on Alpha TV than on Skat.
I will show you a picture of Daniel Cohn-Bendit, who many times attacked Ataka. But this same moral judge, he advocated that pedophilia should be legalized. The same guy describes how undescribable, how fantastic it is when a girl of 5 years starts undressing you. This man is a central figure in the European Parliament. I have no words for this man. Monica Vrion, she is also a Green. She is a Swede. For 3 years, she has been conducting a struggle for people of different sexual orientation. She defends and says that's what MEPs fight for. Here's Monica Vrion and her lesbian face.
The party behind Alpha TV broadcast at the beginning of this year a video in which the main characters are lions, animals that embody the Bulgarian nation. The video was part of Ataka's campaign Hands Off Bulgarian Land, aimed at collecting signatures for a referendum against the right of foreigners to buy land in Bulgaria. The video shows how the stone lions in front of the Palace of Justice in Sofia come alive and destroy the foreigners come to occupy Bulgarian land.
Our ancestors defended the land like lions. They died for it. Today, it is encroached on. We must protect it as they did. Do as the ancestors did by signing Ataka's petition. Bulgaria needs your signature.
According to information available to SEM, Ataka offered to pay for this to be broadcast both on public broadcaster Bulgarian National Television and on privately owned television stations. Only one of them agreed to show it. The Council for Electronic Media is facing a serious problem as to whether and how to sanction the content, because both in the Bulgarian Radio and Television Act and the Directive on Audio-Visual Media Services, there is no clear text against xenophobia. This has led SEM to propose to the Bulgarian Parliament to amend the law to cover this. SEM will present this request in Brussels. Manifestation of negative attitude in Alpha TV towards other ethnic groups usually arise in information programs. It is not associated with extreme insults and abusive language, but the way of presentation provokes bias against the representative of the group on the basis of ignorance, stereotyping, revulsion, hatred and fear. The negative stereotypes employed against the Roma population are established in the context of a story. For example, Bulgarians disappear at the rate of 8 an hour. This was said by the Center for Demographic Policy in a report entitled Dangerous Demographic Trends in 2014. The stereotype regarding the topic is that the high birth rate among Roma people is a threat to the Bulgarians. The topic is used to focus on draining of the welfare system. Gypsy terror continues because of the high number of crimes committed by members of the Roma ethnic group.
We know that everyday crime is mostly gypsy crime, no matter how the Ministry of Interior tries to convince us that crime has no color. Usually, tobacco and grapes, the harvest is stolen exactly by the Roma representatives. The EU gives us resources so that we can integrate them, but does not care how our pensioners live on pensions of 145 leva. Even though those Roma have never worked a day in their lives, that has not stopped human rights organizations from protecting them.
The Roma issue is there on SCAT too. There are two negative opinions and attitudes predominate, both through viewers calling in and through studio guests.
Here it is simply impossible to live. Right in front of my eyes today, a woman had her earring stolen from her ear. Last week, other robbed her in the tram. Terrible gypsy petty crime reigns. It has swept the country everywhere.
A special place in SCAT TV's program is occupied by Chai Shukarie, with author and presenter Naiden Rangelov. SCAT promotes the program as the only one on Bulgarian TV broadcast for our Roma brothers. It is a signature program carried out by a person of mixed origin, Bulgarian and Roma, as the presenter himself emphasizes. But the Roma issue is dealt with not through discussing social conflicts, problems and processes, but only in emotional outbursts against the representative of the Turkish ethnic group and also against the Jews, without basic arguments or reference to facts. The picture would not be complete without mentioning one more fact. All these examples have equivalents in other countries in Europe. Aggravating thing is the fact that politicians and the media, mainly in the UK, but also in the Netherlands, Belgium, France and in Germany, more than once have used hostile rhetoric against Bulgarian and Romanian citizens. The lawyer of the Bulgarian Helsinki Committee, Margarita Ilieva, found that after Europe failed to set a good example, Bulgarians also begin to relate to others as people with low culture as well as an external danger. Further, all penalties imposed by SEM and examples shown are subject to judicial review. They shall enter into force only after being upheld by magistrates. Because of the slowness of judicial proceeding in Bulgaria, the sanctions by SEM are still waiting their turn. On April 30, 2014, the protest network Civil Association sent an open letter to the chairman of SEM, Georgi Uzanov, insisting that the regulator cancels the registration of Alpha TV for systematic preaching of hatred and violations of the Radio and Television Act.
Revocation of registration, closure of a media, is very difficult for the regulator to do. It's impossible for the regulator to make this happen. Only once in the history of the Bulgarian media regulator has it happened, and of course the relevant law was not sufficient. Of course there were political suspicions that that was the motive to shut down the television station, then TV, many years ago, 11 years. The court overruled the council's decision. If we now were to withdraw the registration of Alpha TV, I'm absolutely sure that the same thing could happen again. And besides, I'm not sure what would be the effect on society. Bear in mind that always shutting down a media causes the people that work there and the political party that set it up to come across as victims.
On the European Parliament elections held on 25th of May, Bulgarian voters did not send to Brussels a single member of any of the nationalist parties. Both political formations got negligible number of votes in spite of their TV channels. Ataka party insisted on invalidation of the election after the vote.